Well, thank you so much for joining us on another episode of Built with Jason White. And my guest today is actually, I've known Mr. David Scott for a while, but I'm going to lead with a little intro. So he is the first vice president and sales manager of First State Bank, I believe, correct?
Correct.
And I've known David probably about 8 years.
Yeah.
Been working a little closer with you over the last 3 or 4 years, I want to say. And I know today, the dude is a mortgage genius. We're not going to talk a whole lot about mortgages, though. We got over the next 3 to 4 hours. No, I'm just kidding. We're not going to go that long. We're going to share. So David, our very first Built to Lead men's conference, he was kind enough to actually purchase a table. Yep. You brought some people to it. Apparently you liked it because you decided to sponsor the second Built to Lead men's conference. Right. And fellow keynote speaker, where I got to hear your story for the first time. Had no idea about that. But more importantly than mortgages and all that, I believe you are a girl dad. Am I not? 2 girls?
2 girls.
So 2 girls, been married for
35 years.
I always put people on the spot. Sometimes they know
35
years. So congratulations on that. I think your daughters are older. One's married. The other one's
married. One's engaged.
Yeah. So, and also has some dogs too, right? Or are those the daughter's dogs?
Daughter's dogs.
Yeah.
She took it when she just bought it. My youngest daughter just took our dog, my dog, when she bought it her first house with her fiance.
Gotcha.
And, also 3 grandchildren. I have 2 granddaughters and just recently my first grandson.
Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
The family is still growing.
Absolutely.
So when I heard David's story, I said, man, and this happened about 3 months ago, I want to say now, 2.5 months ago, I was like, that would be perfect. We need to get that out to more people because we had a good 100 men or something at the conference, somewhere around there. But I think more people need to hear that because it was definitely impactful. Yep. So thank you so much for being willing to open up and share that, not only from the stage, but today too. So we're going to start a little bit, though, and get to know David Scott. If you haven't seen the episode before, we like to start with our fire starters. So some questions just to kind of get the ball rolling and get moving. So let's start with what's one thing most people would be surprised to learn about you?
Most people would probably be surprised. This is the one I use as a little bit of a stumper, but I had a job at one point where I sold grave sites and grave markers. Most people would not say that about me, and actually I enjoyed it very much. It was at a transitional time way early in my marriage. I was transitioning one job to another, and I would think that most people have no idea that I ever actually did that for a living.
No, I guess that's better than digging the grave sites, though.
Right.
I would rather sell them than dig them, I suppose, but I guess.
Absolutely.
All right. If you weren't doing what you do today, what would you be doing?
So that's a fairly easy question for me, just because I'm really passionate about it and I love it. I think I would be a financial planner. I feel like that was a calling I missed somewhere along the lines. I very much enjoy that. I like looking at the markets and kind of analyzing. I'm a big saver. So I think I probably would be a financial planner. I think I'd like to help people in one way or another. And I feel like I do that through mortgages, but through financial planning, I think would be probably another thing that I think I would enjoy.
Yeah. And they're kind of the same realm. I feel
Similar, yeah.
That's like the mortgage area is one aspect of the financial planning. So you're more dialed in on one. There you go. But all right, this one's super easy, but coffee or energy drink? Energy
drink for sure. Yeah, my family would laugh if you even asked me that. I'm not a coffee guy. Do not drink it ever, but I can wake up and have a Red Bull right out of bed.
Okay.
Or a Diet Mountain Dew.
That's the energy drink of choice?
I'm a Diet Mountain Dew guy almost every day. Okay. And actually this morning, my wife had a Diet Mountain Dew ready for me. So
we are not sponsored by them, so sorry guys, but hey, no. Awesome. So that's a little bit insight into David Scott. So let's kind of get into the meat and potatoes and talk a little bit. And I know this is so let's start from the beginning. What I want to do is really go back to kind of the same story you shared from stage,
sure.
And what led to that. And so if you want to start from the beginning and kind of share what led to the addiction, now that I'm kind of spoiling a little bit, but go ahead and start from the beginning for us.
No problem. I'm proud to say I'm sober since November 8th, 2017. I was a daily drinker, and it's something that was obviously an issue in my life for a long time. I can't nail anything that really led to it. I go back on this all the time, and I mean, really, I look back all the way back to high school of having a void somewhere in my life that I just couldn't fix. I was putting a square peg in a round hole of some kind. Looking back even to my high school, we had to have, mottos or, sayings or something in the yearbook. And I remember mine was got to do more, got to be more. So I can, looking all the way back there, feeling like that I wasn't enough. There was something missing.
Yeah.
And I felt when I added alcohol, it kind of changed my personality. It gave me like this confidence level that I didn't have, when I was sober. And obviously looking back now, it was just a huge void. And most people, when they saw it, they knew what I was and what it did to me. It was terrible for the family. I mean, I had so many superficial relationships, so many superficial conversations with people. If you would ask me, what I did or something, I would spew, something about my business or something, and I would never talk about my wife, my family, or my love for God. Those were the things that just wouldn't come up in conversation, and now those are the three things I want to talk about.
Yeah.
It's not about, in fact, when you would ask me to do this, I said, hey, if we can make it not about mortgages, I might be in.
Yep. There you go.
So because I have to keep, God first, right? And when we start getting invaded by, the job and, houses and cars and things like that, like it's easy for me, I guess I'll say personally, to get sidetracked. And I try not to get sidetracked anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was the reason I wanted you on here. As you probably know, we started this because we want to just forge strong men, strong families, to lead with faith, build with purpose, and really just live with impact. And that was huge to hear your story of that. And I think we've talked about this, or, a lot of people grab baggage along the way in life. Sometimes they don't even know it. I know I had it. You've heard my story. And it does cause what I would call a behavioral shift in you when you have that baggage and you're dragging along, and there are certain things that trigger that. And for you, it was your confidence level, and so like you said, liquid courage, basically, right? You would turn to drinking, and you'd say, "All right, now I can kind of." It's almost like you're masking the pain. Yeah. We all kind of put mask on, and that was your mask at the time, right? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, it was my mask, and like I say, this feeling of just not being enough and not being maybe good enough. So that constant drive, I was just absolutely convinced that my role as a husband and father was to provide to the highest extent that I could, financially. And it had nothing to do with my quality time or memories or creating moments. It was all about what I could give to them. And in the end, it's absolutely what they didn't want.
Yeah.
They could care less about all those things. They really just wanted me and my time. And now looking back 9 years, I can see it. But it was hard. I think a lot of times people think with alcoholism, for some reason for me, I always felt like it was associated with people maybe who were down on their luck or who were having financial woes. That wasn't the case for me. We weren't having any financial difficulties. I actually paid off my house the year that I went into rehab. It was the opposite, and so I just want people to know that it can happen to anyone. It can happen at any time. And what's painted on the outside isn't always what's on the inside, right? And so, and for me, it was really hard to accept that. It was really hard for me to take help and ask for help and to get help. But once I did, looking back, I'm proud of it now. There was probably the first couple of years where I probably didn't want to talk about it. I certainly wouldn't tell people that I got help.
Well, I want to unpack that a little bit before you keep going, because I think that's very important to address. Two things you just said that I think you mentioned being a provider, and that was kind of your mindset. You said, as long as I'm providing. And if you didn't listen to the Father's Day episode we just released, please go back and listen to that. I address that and we talk about that. Like, there's more to that than just being a provider. So if you have that mindset, just realize that there's a lot more to being a man and a father than just being a provider for the family. But secondly, and we are so guilty of this as men, is to not want to ask for help. We internalize it and we say, no, I can deal with it. I'll figure it out. And we are almost raised that way. It's almost the culture that we grew up in is be a man, don't cry about it, tough it out, all these things. And that is not accurate. And that's kind of why we wanted you to come on the stage and share your story, but also what we try to accomplish by these conferences is saying, listen, get you your mat carriers, get you those gentlemen that are going to help you when you can't help yourself, right? So
Right.
I just want to make sure that we touched on that because that's very important.
Yeah.
If you're a man out there and you are going through something minor or not, get you someone that you can trust that's going to tell you even what you don't want to hear, that's going to help you carry you when you can't carry yourself.
Right.
So when that time came, and you're building into this, so
Yeah.
go ahead and continue with.
Yeah, I mean, mine came to a head, as I mentioned, November 8th, and it came to a head with my wife making a decision that this was not a position she was going to live with any longer. And, it was hard. And at the time when she gave me an ultimatum is what it came down to. I originally didn't make the right choice. Originally, my first instinct was, well, I'm just going to move out because I'm doing what everyone else is doing. I'm providing. You have no idea how good you have it. You have no idea of all the things I do. And I was, pounding my chest. And I went to sleep that night. And the next morning, I woke up and I decided that I was going to go into rehab. I was going to take the time. But again, actually, in all honesty, not for the right reasons still. I was going to do it just to show that, I wasn't the problem. I'm going to stop drinking. I'm going to do that for 30 or 60 days, and all of our problems would still exist.
Yeah.
And I was going to do it to basically maybe prove her wrong.
Yeah.
And of course, she proved me wrong. Because after 30 days, I realized, wow, this is a lot better. I'm going to give it a little bit longer. And I gave it 60 days, and it got a lot better. And I know I shared with you at the story. It's horrible, and I love it at the same time. It's embarrassing though. But my daughter, at the time, wrote me little notes, and I still have them to this day. I think I showed you some of them that said 7 days, Dad, you got this. 30 days, Dad, you got this. 60 days, Dad, you got this. And I get a little emotional about this because as important and as treasured as those are to me, they are equally as embarrassing to me. Because no girl at the age that she was at, 14 years old, should be writing her dad notes saying, good job on 30 days staying sober, Dad. That wasn't her role. That wasn't her position. I should have never put her in that position, right?
Right. But I will point out that even though, and I know your feelings on this because, I kind of went through a similar thing. And I will point out that because she was there to see you go through this, you have strengthened her and you've built her into a better human being to be able to go through trials and tribulations and say, my dad can do it. He went through it. I can get through it. Yeah. So that's pretty cool. And I get choked up too because I think about, that situation.
You have girls.
So even if it is embarrassing, which I can fully understand, it's also one of those things that is life-changing in a good way for her too.
Yeah.
So be proud of, not necessarily that you had to go through it, but be proud that you went through it and that you were able to teach her something that she may have never learned if you didn't go through it. So
no, absolutely. And I say all the time, I learn more from people doing it the wrong way than I do from people doing it the right way. Mm-hmm. And so if there's one thing that I'm going to be darn sure that comes out of this is that I can show those kids that if they do get hit with some kind of trial or tribulation, whatever it may be in their life, that if they, dig deep enough and they believe strong enough, that God's going to provide them a way out. And that's the one thing that I just want them to know. That. By
the way, you might want to not hit the table too much because it will probably just sound terrible on the mic.
Sorry.
So I know you're a hand talker. I've talked with you enough. I got to control myself. So just letting you know. But
and that's where I kind of I hang my hat on it now is saying, okay, it happened. I can't take it back, but what can I teach them from it?
Yes.
Right? And if I can teach them from it, and that helps me stay sober every day. You know what I mean? Because I can't show them that you can relapse. You know
exactly.
What I mean? And one of the things I'll tell you, and I think I might share this, the last day in rehab, you say this goodbye speech. And most of the people, the speech goes very similar of, I love you all, you're my family, and thank you so much, because you've been in there for 10, 12, 14 days, and you get to get close with people, right, because you're in this little, confine.
Yeah.
And my speech was very different. I'll never forget it, just because mine was very short. I said, hey, I appreciate you all. You're not my family. I'm going home to them. Hope I don't see you guys again, because if I do, it means we're both back in here.
Yeah.
And I don't want to be back in here.
Right.
And I asked the counselor, I said, hey, what's the success rate? And he says, oh, we don't talk about it. I looked at him very seriously. I said, come on, what's the success rate? He goes, do the best you can. I said, what's the success rate? He said, 3 to 5%. I said, okay. And I think the best thing that came from that counseling for me was him telling me that, because I am extremely competitive.
Right.
And I said, okay, the odds are against me. That means I have to do it again.
Yeah.
So I think that my competitiveness is almost a little bit of a help in that sense of saying, hey, I got to beat those odds
Right.
at 95
Right.
or 97%. So.
Yeah, and I remember you saying so. And early on, let's go back to like when you got dropped off at rehab,
Yeah.
or whatever. You were meeting with, I think, a female counselor or
Yeah,
something during
Olivia.
that time. Yeah, Olivia, and
yeah.
and so I'd like to go through like what those meetings were like. And I think you said something or something came
Yeah.
out, and so if you want to share that, that'd be awesome.
So Olivia was a really young, I mean, probably mid to late 20s counselor. And you don't meet her until like day 2 or 3. And so days 1 and 2, we already kind of saw who the counselors were. And everyone wanted this guy, Mohammed. He was the best. He was really this great worker of miracles. And I really was hoping I would get him, and I didn't. I got her. And so I was really disappointed. And she was very young, and I was a bitter, resentful spot. Here I am in rehab, wasn't expecting to be there. And I remember being very crude to her in our first meeting and just saying, how old are you? Did you get your degree last week or last month? And, I was not in a good place. So the things I say, I had huge regret. But, questioning, that she probably didn't make as much as in a year as I did, in a month or something, very extremely condescending. And she looked at me at one point and she said, "Who hurt you?" And I looked at her and I said, "Who hurt me? What's that mean?" And I was really like defensive. And I said, "Are you talking about this girl in high school whose parents didn't think that I was good enough?" And she's like, "What?" And she opened up this box in me that I kind of didn't know existed.
Yeah.
And she started exploring it. And by the end, she and I were very good friends. And I apologized profusely to her several times after that about my first encounter with her. But yeah, she was really insightful. She was very knowledgeable. I think she literally was her first year doing this. So I'm sure she has stories that she tells on the reverse side of one of these about, hey, I had this guy one time. But she was really insightful, and she really made me kind of like dig deep into this why and how long I've had this feeling of maybe not being good enough. And I think that it was such something I had to live with for so long, but it is part of who I am, right?
Yeah.
It does make me who I am. It does make me competitive and strive to do better, but I have to channel that, and I have to kind of acknowledge it to make sure that I'm only using the good side of it, not the bad side. I think is how it comes down to.
Yeah, I think it's important to, it's okay to challenge yourself, be competitive, but are you living out your story or are you living out someone else's story for you, right? And it's like, what am I competing with? Am I competing just so these people that I'll never see again can see that I did well?
Right.
Or am I competing with the me from yesterday, and am I getting better, right? And that's something that has shifted in my life too over the last few years, is because I was a highly competitive person, played sports in school, and I was always looking at, I want what they have, or I want to try to, I can do that, or if they can do it, I can do it, which in some sense there is that, but it's turned now to where, and it's funny because my daughter actually, it was awesome. My oldest daughter, Elena, which I think from the gym, she wrote this book for Father's Day, and it was like Reasons Why I Love You or whatever, and it was like, 12 different pages, and it would, what you think, and that was one thing she pointed out that I was like, oh, that's actually, I didn't even remember that shift, but she's seen that shift over the last 5 years of how I've shifted to just competing to be a better person every day than what I was yesterday, as opposed to worrying about all the outside noise and the negativity. And so that's pretty. And how long were you in at that point when that finally was, I guess, uncovered or discovered or?
Yeah, that probably happened. I was in for 14 days. I was in for my birthday. My birthday fell in the middle of it, and I got out a day or two before Thanksgiving. It was in November. That was probably right in the midstream of it, and we kind of talked about that for a few days. She had me read a small book that kind of addressed this feeling of insecurity and feeling of trying to overcome things with material things. That was a big problem of mine. It was trying to buy a bigger house, a fancier car. Interesting now, I haven't bought myself a car in so many years. I don't even know how. I bought my wife a very nice car, but it was what she chose and she picked out. But myself, I've lost this desire.
Was there something that you learned, read, or whatever that we can share with the men out there that changed that? Like for the people that are still striving to buy the next best car, next best house, not that it's wrong or bad or whatever, but what did you read in that book or that pamphlet that she gave you that you were like, Wow. Okay. Hold on.
Yeah, I think for me, I just had to decide why I wanted those things. And was I wanting it for me or was I wanting it to show others?
Gotcha.
And for me, it was really always about showing others. You know what I mean? It really wasn't something that I desired in my own heart because it wasn't, something
no
that
satisfaction
there was
in
no
that.
satisfaction or,
Yeah.
maybe it was satisfying. And then the next day I looked and said,
Now what? Yeah.
yeah, now what?
Yeah.
And so once you get it restructured like that, and again, I've been a Christian my whole life. I grew up Catholic, and when I was going through the alcohol period, I prayed to God all the time to help me quit drinking. I prayed and prayed and prayed and said I wanted help, and then the next day I drank, and I asked him so many times why he's letting me down. Why are you letting me down? And how come you're not helping me? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he sent people after people. I can name the names of the people he sent me that took me to meetings and took me to places and tried to get me help. And some
Yeah.
great men that I've thanked so many times. The problem is I never let him. I asked for the help, but I didn't accept it. I didn't just say, here it is, right? Here's
Yeah.
my life. Here's my heart, Lord. I trust you and take me from here. And I just wouldn't give it up. And once I finally gave it up, and now I give it up on everything.
Yeah.
I give it up on the easiest thing today. Like, hey, this is in your hands, man. Whatever's supposed to happen is going to happen.
That's awesome.
You got me. I know it. And so it's taken a weight off my shoulders. And I guess when that weight came off, it kind of took that desire sometimes away. It's not that I don't ever desire something nice, what I mean? A nice shirt or something, but not this excessive need. And when it's something I desire now, it's going to be something for me or for my family to enjoy privately. It's not something that I need to have to show the world.
That kind of reminds me of recently Theo Vaughn. I don't know if you saw this or not, but he was talking about in John how Jesus goes to the pool in Bethesda, and the guy's like, hey, take me to the pool so I can be healed. And Jesus' question to him was, do you want to be healed?
Yeah.
And that kind of struck a chord with me because a lot of times that we are that way. It's because we know that if we get healed, we have to give this up or we'll have to give that up, and we think that's what we want. We want to keep that in our lives. I'm going to have to give up drinking. I'm going to have to give up going out with my friends. I'm going to have to give up. But I think you found, and I found, that in those moments when you can give it all to God and just say, you can actually still go do those same things, but without the crutch that was holding you back, right? You can still go out with friends and have dinner or whatever. And you and I have had lunch together, and we all drink Shirley Temples, and it's
just not the same thing. As soon as you said
what I mean? It's good stuff. So
absolutely.
But that's that. Yeah, in our weakest moments, I think that's the bit we want. Like we're praying, hey, somebody help me, save me, whatever. But in our heart, we're like, oh, I don't know if I want to be healed. Right, so when you're going through the rehab, you start to uncover this stuff, and that's when I think stuff. Because you talked about how even you went in with the wrong mindset, you went in kind of cocky, like whatever, I'm going to do this. But by the time you left there a changed man, correct? Or was it after that?
I would say I left there a changed man, but it was 30, 60, 90 days. So 90 days sobriety. I remember speaking with my youngest daughter, and I said, hey, it's 90 days. She wrote me one of her notes. I have that one that says 90 days. And in all honesty, I thought maybe I would drink still, And I kind of said something to her at that moment. I said, I probably even could have a beer nowadays. I think I could control it. And I said it kind of loosely, but I said it to see what she'd say. And I'll never forget, she stopped and she turned pale white. And she said, no, Dad, no.
Yeah.
And I looked at her right then, and so people always talk about their bottom, they're like, what was it? And a lot of times it's a DUI, they were arrested, car accident, things like that. They lost their job. It's all these horrific things. I mean, knock on wood, I won't knock on the table, but I didn't have that horrific moment. If you ask me my lowest bottom dime, I would say 90 days sobriety and 1 year sobriety.
Yeah.
On 90 days, I had that conversation with my daughter, and I saw her face, and I saw the hurt that I had put in her. Mm-hmm. That was positively one of my lowest moments. And 1 year, my wife gave me this watch for 1 year of sobriety, and it says 525,600 minutes in the back. 1 year.
Oh.
And she gave me this watch, and she presented it to me, and I remember feeling so unworthy. There was never anything I felt so unworthy. Like, how am I getting a gift? Because I kept myself sober for a year. I didn't get drunk. I wasn't an idiot. And it felt so wrong,
Yeah.
And that same day, she gave it to me in a very special place that our family goes. And we were walking down the street, and I told my daughter about this restaurant. I said, we should go in this restaurant right here. They have crab claws. And she's like, no. I said, no, it's crab claws, not crab crab claws, you only get them certain times. We're down in Florida.
Yeah.
I said, they come hot or cold. And I'm explaining to her. She's like, no. I said, what do you mean? You love crab. And she's like, last time we were there, you got thrown out. Well, the year before, we'd gone to the same place, and I had gotten drunk, and I didn't get thrown out. At least I won't say I did. But I was definitely, they stopped serving me.
Yes.
And so there was that
You were
memory.
gently escorted.
I was gently asked to leave and pay my bill.
Yeah.
But I remember that. I remember thinking, like, again, a 14-year-old should not have to go through that.
Yeah.
And so here I got this nice new watch. I'm being rewarded for being,
Yeah.
normal. I don't want to say normal, but being, sober. Like, it was just so unworthy. And so really with the Built to Lead, now keep in mind, I've been sober 9 years. With Built to Lead, I was telling my wife the story about the watch and how at the time she gave it to me, I felt like I didn't deserve it. And she said, it wasn't about the year that you were sober. It was about every minute we have going forward and treasuring them. She goes, I wasn't rewarding you for being sober for a year. I was saying, let's remember we have 525,600 minutes in a year and make the most of them. And so honestly, one of the best things that came from Built to Lead for me was this watch means a lot different meaning to me after owning it for 8 years.
Yeah.
Right? After owning it, that I didn't even understand the meaning behind it when my wife had put the engraving on it. So it's kind of interesting to me. But yeah, so
cool.
my lowest moments really weren't even before quitting. They were actually sober moments of me realizing what I had done. And for those people out there who maybe are thinking or looking at this saying, oh, maybe I should quit drinking, you have no idea what your family sees in you when you're that state and what they're picking up, even if your children are young, even 4, 5, 6, whatever the case may be.
Right.
And will it change your life? Yes, it'll change your life. Will you lose some friends? Maybe. But I was so afraid of that with the public's perception of me, and I'm going to lose my friends. I won't be able to go to the bar anymore, blah, blah, blah. Did I lose some friends? Absolutely, I did. But I gained more friends, and I gained better friends.
Yeah.
Not better because they're better people or anything, but I gained better relationships. And maybe most of that's on me, not on the people that I hung out with. They weren't bad people, but
No.
I'm making more meaningful relationships.
Yeah.
People who share, some of the more similarities that I share.
Yeah, and there's people in our lives that are there for stages. There's people that are there for longer periods of time, and there's some that are just passing, right?
Yeah.
And I think that really we have to understand that if you're making changes to improve yourself, no matter what it is, whether it be quit drinking, whether it be to grow, in your faith, you're going to lose some people.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter who they are, you will lose them because people do not like to see others grow, especially if they are in a stage of their life where they have some of that. I would imagine that when you were in that stage, as I was, when you were you were drinking the mass things, mm-hmm. you probably had some of those same thoughts where if you didn't hang out with anybody that was improving themselves, probably because it made you feel bad about what you were doing.
Yeah.
And I was in that same boat. So you're going to lose some, but that's okay. That's okay. And what I've found is, and I'm sure you probably have found this, is sometimes you can get those back because you're able to pull them up later in life to your level of that growth and kind of carry them with you. But yeah, that is something that's, it's the downside of, but it's so worth it for the family. I think you would agree.
Yeah, absolutely worth it for the family. I have, I think, earned back the respect from my family, and I want to be the best father and grandfather now that I can for the time I'm going to have left, whether that's 2 days or 25 years. Right?
Yeah.
I want to make that impact, and I want to make those memories and moments. So.
Now, this is funny because you bring up the father and grandfather thing, and I've noticed it with my father-in-law, and I'm starting to make that shift too. Have your daughters ever come to you and been like, wow, you're a lot different than when you were my dad, right? With the grandkids or anything like that? Have you, like the change in spirit, the gentler you, or...
Yeah. I mean, the grandkids are young still, so it's 2.5. You know what I mean?
Okay. They don't leave you alone with the kids. They're like,
No, but so it's still kind of new and evolving.
Gotcha.
My granddaughter already knows, who's 2.5, knows Papa will do almost anything.
Mm-hmm.
So she came over just 2 days ago, and she's like, Papa, let's go in the pool. And I instantly go. And so, I don't ever tell her no.
Yeah.
But I just want to make those moments and those things. But yeah, absolutely. I was blessed with 2 daughters, and then our first 2 grandchildren were daughters or 2 girls. So I get played a lot by these ladies. So
I've just noticed that with my father-in-law too. He was, when I met Amber 20 whatever it was 4 years ago or whatever, he was just like stern, tough guy, which I would be too with my daughter's boyfriends, I guess.
Right.
But now I see him as this very kind and loving, and he loves the grandkids, and so I'm seeing shifts of that. But I was just curious. So
great question.
All right, so back to now you've gotten through rehab, you get out, and your life shifts. You replace. So we replaced booze with you started hitting the gym hard, right?
I started hitting the gym.
When did that start?
Almost instantly when I got out of rehab, I started going to the gym and said, okay, I want to get myself in better shape. I was just over 300 pounds. I had almost a 50-inch waist. I think these are 36-inch pants I have on today.
There we go.
So I started hitting the gym hard. My youngest daughter, who was still at home, my oldest daughter was in college at the time, we hung out a lot, even when I was drinking, you know what I mean? I did a lot of things that, when we would go out of the boat, I'd take beer or whatever. So when that changed, I started going to the gym. She got really interested in the gym, and it transformed her life because she started doing some working out. She got with a trainer. She's done a couple bodybuilding shows. She actually has a banner in Powerhouse Gym here in Fenton.
Oh, yeah.
She won her first show. And it changed her life so much that we started going to the CrossFit local gym here. And it's connected to a physical therapy office.
Okay.
And she thought that was the coolest thing. You could be a doctor of physical therapy and be in the CrossFit gym. So my daughter actually is doing her clinical rotations right now. She's got her white coat. She'll be a doctor in January of physical therapy. And I think she has we kind of see which direction she has. If she'll go in the athletic side, the gym side, go and work in a hospital, but she's got a lot of options. But yeah, it totally transformed her life, I think, and put her in a total different trajectory that would not have happened if I had,
And what was I forget what was the title of your talk on the stage? It was, you had a cool little
Bottles to Barbells.
That's what it is. Bottles to Barbells. We're gonna name this episode that. So I like that. Bottles to Barbells.
Yeah.
Perfect. And so now and that was in 2018, 17 when you started working out.
Yep.
And you've been pretty steady in the gym. If you can't tell, this dude's jacked. So still in the gym, still kicking it.
When we joined a new gym, I actually got a trainer. I like working with a trainer at least a couple of days a week. I like to push me.
Yeah.
And so I got this trainer, and I like working out with my trainer. I had one trainer a long time ago I used to work out with him. I paid him, but I had to work. So when we got to this new gym, I said, hey, and I'd like to work out with you. And he actually made that accommodation for me. It was kind of cool. He's a younger guy. And so after working out with me for 60 days, I said, do you ever take a cheat meal? Because he eats everything so regimented. He goes, once a week I do a cheat meal. Oh, okay.
Okay.
And so we went out to dinner, and I brought my daughter along, and she got to meet him, and she's engaged to him now. So,
really? That's funny.
So the gym
and
this
is the daughter. This was the daughter that was heavy in the gym anyway, and so it kind of fits. And
so they share that in common, and so I work out with him every Friday. Still, he's still my trainer.
I was just saying, pretty soon you might not have to pay him.
Exactly.
Might work out good.
Yeah,
all right.
And actually, my other son-in-law is starting to join us on Fridays too. So kind of a dream come true for me if I can get both my son-in-laws and myself, and we get an hour.
That's awesome.
Lifting some weights and.
What was it about the gym that drew you to it? I guess was there something in you that I'm assuming being competitive and having that kind of addictive personality is what I like to call it, and a lot of competitive people have that. Whether it be for you, it was drinking early on, but sometimes it's chasing a career. Sometimes it is the gym. Once you find something, you're 100% in, right? So
I think for me, the gym, a couple things. Number one, I was grossly overweight and out of shape, and I felt terrible about myself. So I think I really wanted a physical change.
Gotcha.
And then I also needed to occupy some time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I was at the bar from 4 to 7 every night, right? So I had those 3 hours. That was kind of my time. I really wasn't a bar guy till 2 in the morning kind of thing. I was like a 4 to 7.
Gotcha.
Kind of roll in my house about 7. Kind of. I don't think there's anything as a functional but alcoholic, but I was kind of functional in that way of I get home around 7, I go to bed at 8, and wake up and do it again.
Yeah.
So for the gym, it was kind of 2 things. I was kind of grossed out. I had just gotten so big and out of shape that I wanted to get back in shape, and I knew I had to start there. So I started with a trainer, right here at Powerhouse Gym. And then secondly was occupying the time. So I needed to burn out those hours. And that's how my daughter got involved is I was starting to do a gym in the morning and a gym in the evening. I was going twice a day, going back and doing cardio or something. And so she started, hey, can I come with you? And so I talked to the owner of Powerhouse Gym, and he's like, yeah, put her on treadmill. And that lasted about 2 weeks. She's like, no, I want to lift weights.
And how old was she at that point?
14.
14. So she's like, hey, I'm going to start working out. And that's awesome.
Yeah.
Very cool. So now you guys share that in common. I'm sure that's like a huge blessing and perfect. And so through that time, through the gym time and stuff, are there any lessons that you picked up or anything that you can share with the men out there that maybe are how to get started? What is your best, advice for getting into the gym? Where should they begin? Because, I mean, if you're like me, not everybody loves the gym. Yeah. Not everybody's like, yeah, I want to go. Let's go. But they want to make that physical change. What would you recommend to start as far as getting there?
That's a great question. There's a couple different ways to answer it. I would say, for me, it's all about controlling my morning. When I control my morning, I control my day, right? So I like to get up early first thing and start my day with some type of physical fitness. And I tell people that every day, whether it's lifting weights, Pilates, yoga, something that you start your day with. I like lifting weights, but to make your point of how do you get started is I would try to find maybe even some type of group fitness class to start out with. For me, accountability and camaraderie are really important. Gotcha. So if you can find a group fitness class that works for you, there's definitely several in the area where you're going every morning at 6 o'clock and you're going to see your 2 or 3, maybe they're not friends, maybe they're not people you even know now, but you will get to know them and they will get to know you. Yeah. And you'll say, hey, and good morning. And you'll get to know their names. And, when you're not there and you skip a day and the next day they'll say, hey, you missed yesterday. Yeah. So you have to have something that's consistent and you have to be accountable. Yeah. Right. And so I think, and a lot of people are going to say, well, yeah, but I have to pay for those classes. Absolutely, you have to pay for them. If you can hire a personal trainer, I think that's a great idea. But if that's a little steep on the budget, the group classes, which a lot of places offer them, you can just pay a monthly membership. But you get that camaraderie and that accountability of that group, and they encourage you and they push you and they hold you accountable. I just think it's so impactful.
Yeah, accountability is the key, and that's the theme that I think you've been sharing this whole for your entire story. Is once you had that accountability in your life, that's when things started to shift, and you kept it throughout. So you kept the accountability to stop the drinking, and then as soon as you hit the gym, you immediately was like, I need the accountability. So you hire trainers or whatever, and so that's huge. And I'll say that I've used that same excuse about having to pay for the gym and stuff like that. But in the end, I think we're all going to pay something. So we're either going to pay to be healthy or we're going to pay because we're not healthy. So choose where you want to put your money, right? So that I think the unhealthy probably costs a lot more than being healthy. Yeah. So that's awesome. Well, anything else you want to share before I wrap up with a few more questions or anything? Because this is huge impact.
One of the things that came from our Built to Lead conference, and I didn't plan it, but a lot of guys will say, I don't know how to lead my family. And my wife is a really strong woman, and she leads our family in faith really strong. It's hard for me because as a man, I want to lead, right? Yeah. And it's hard for me because she's really strong in there, right? And so, a lot of guys had said, and I think from Built to Lead, they said, where do I start? How do I start to lead my family? I've never done it, right? And the easiest 2 ways that I think you can start, and any man can implement this without knowing every scripture in the Bible. I don't know every scripture in the Bible. I'm not great at reciting things. But you can start, I guess maybe 3 things, but lead yourself in your own prayer every morning, right? Lead your family in prayer before a meal. And it doesn't have to be some elaborate prayer. Thank you for this food. Bless it to our bodies. Amen. Right?
Love it.
It doesn't have to be something crazy. I used to be so petrified of praying out loud. Tim Welsh helped me learn how to pray out loud. And because I told him I'm petrified of it. If in a group of men and you guys ask me to say the prayer, I tremble. Like I can talk about mortgages all day long, but you ask me to lead a prayer. He's like, thank God for the day. Thank God for the day. Yep. Bless the food of the body. Don't overthink it. Now I could pray for 3 hours if you want me to. I could lead and go on, but
nobody
bless the food of the body and go to church with them on Sundays.
Yep.
It's not that hard to get in the car and go.
That's
it's
so
3 simple
good.
things. You don't have to be like this, Bible scholar to lead your family in faith, but just start off with little increments.
That's huge. And what's funny is I actually am working on one of my Foundation in 15, and it's called Lead with Let's. And it's exactly what you're saying. It's you as a husband leading by saying, let's pray before dinner.
Yeah.
Let's go to church Sunday. Let's thank God for this. Whatever. It's just That's it. It's very simple.
Yep.
And you don't have to be this bold. Man, I'm the leader. That's not how it is.
No.
And I had associate pastor of our church on here a couple episodes ago, and he talked about, and we were discussing being a lion and a lamb. And he's talking about, and the big takeaway was be a lion for your family, but be a lamb with your family.
Yeah.
And I was like, a lot of us don't know how to do that. We're one or the other, and we're kind of full bore all the time at that.
Yeah.
And we don't know how to and that's something that I've seen in you. I could tell, that you'd be a lion for your family, right? But I also see it. You've talked about your grandkids and stuff. I see how much you'd be a lamb for your your family, or with your family, I should say. So that is huge. Thank you so much.
Yeah,
And we're gonna end with our Forged 5.
Okay.
So this is
I wish I was given these ahead of time, but okay.
No, we don't do that. So if you listen to a couple of episodes, you might know the questions, but we try to shift them up a little bit, cater them to our guests. So a couple questions here, and we're going to end with this. This is 5 questions that kind of, first thing that comes to mind. So what's one daily habit that changed your life? And you may have touched on this, but maybe go a little deeper.
I would say my morning prayer. I don't do anything before I thank God. Very, very first thing, as soon as my eyes open, for my sobriety. And then I thank him for my children, for my grandchildren, for my wife. But I start with daily prayer every single day. I don't think I've missed a single day. I know I haven't missed a single day since November 8th, 2017. Just of thanking and starting my day just thinking about him and thanking him for what he's done for me.
Which is huge, and it will help everyone out there. You start that day with gratitude and watch how your day shifts from, being maybe a negative or a downer day to just loving that you're alive that day, right? So I love that. Number 2, what book or podcast or person has impacted you the most? And I tell my guests, we got Jesus, we got the Bible, those are, we know. Outside of those, because we're heavily on faith, and we know those are number 1. Outside of that, what maybe book, podcast, or person has really impacted you the most in your life?
Well, there's a book that I read when I was in rehab called King Baby that talks about specifically the materialistic desires and feeling a void and trying to replace them with materialistic desires. So that book, I would say, probably was one of the, when she asked me to read that initially, I would have sworn it was written about me.
Yeah.
So I would say that book probably is the one book that probably, transformed, me the most. I guess. Yeah.
Was there one thing in that book or something that you remember or that you recall about that book that maybe would help someone out there, or is it like, go get that book and read it?
Go get it and read it. If you think that that's your issue, the book is very specific, so it wouldn't be for everyone's read. You know what I mean? It really is about people who are materialistic, driven, in kind of doing that, which is interesting because obviously at Built to Lead, the book I'm reading currently is Do It Afraid by, Ken Chevalier, which parallels a lot of the similarities. It's interesting because, the first couple of chapters of this book, he talks about, wanting Nikes and having this desire. And it was my life. It was interesting how similar he and I were in that desire.
Right.
So, but yeah, I would say that. I also have Tony Dungy's Daily Faith book. And it's pretty interesting. It's from a football perspective. I love football, right?
Yeah.
So, there's lots of things you can do that associate with your life that involve God too. You don't even realize
100%.
it, right? But I wanted a book that I could, so I do my daily prayer, and I wanted like a daily devotional book. And so I was like doing some research on them, and I came across this one by, and there's a lot of football metaphors in it and a lot of stories about him and coach, and so.
For sure. Tony Dungy is the man.
Yeah. So it's really interesting, but I have it on my desk and I read, it's 365 pages.
Okay.
And so it's a page a day,
Got
in that day. And so when you get it, just so you know, start wherever you are. So it's literally March 25th or today's June, whatever.
Yep.
Start on that day. Don't start from the beginning. Start on that day and just keep going.
Just work your way through it for the
Work
year.
your way through it. And
Perfect.
so, I think,
love that.
Again, incorporating God in the morning, a little bit later, trying to keep him first,
throughout your day.
throughout
Absolutely.
your day.
Love that. Awesome. All right. What's one piece of advice or lesson that you've learned that you will never forget? And like I said, you may have touched on that, but maybe there's something else that...
I guess something I'll never forget, lesson, I guess, obviously your family's all you have, right? So everything else is going to be gone at some point. The cars, the houses, material crap. So for me, I'm all about making the moments at this time and putting them first and spending as much time as I can, with them. We've, since our last, even from Built to Lead, we've been blessed with our third grandchild who came into the world about 8 weeks early. And so he just came home last week, and he had 39 days in the NICU. Oh. And so we don't go by many days without cherishing that. And for a while there, he needed to be fed and then held upright after every feeding. Well, he's eating every 3 hours. So, for a week there, I took the 5 a.m. slot, which means I had to leave my house at 4 a.m. to get to the hospital to feed him at 5 a.m. and then hold him upright for an hour. And in all honesty, I didn't do the feeding part because I was uncomfortable. So I had the nurse feed him for 15 or 20 minutes, but then I would hold him for an hour upright.
Gotcha.
And so, just making that moment, that's a moment I'm never going to forget, sharing time with him. And I know that my daughter was appreciative and my son-in-law were appreciative because they needed someone to fill that slot and they couldn't be there for 24 hours a day. But, appreciating everything you have and knowing that even with God first, there's still going to be trials and tribulations, right?
Yeah.
I'm a huge believer, so is my family, but we just had a baby in the NICU for 39 days, and that's our second one. The first one was 40 days. So, and that's something you don't want to be experienced in, but we're experienced in.
Right.
So, but he's home now. We got him home last Sunday. He's doing great. We're blessed to have him home, and we're excited to have him home.
That's awesome.
But, yeah. So
reoccurring theme with you. Reoccurring theme I'm picking up, and I see it. It's like, the memories, the moments mean everything.
Yeah.
Like everything else is fleeting. Yeah. Everything, even, and it's almost, we realize that that we pass away even. Yeah. So creating those memories and really understanding like what's important and the legacy that we leave. I'm picking that up.
And I think that's probably because I'm trying to make up some time, because there might be some memories for some periods in there, and there might be some that A, aren't good, or B, I don't pretty much remember myself, right? So I'm probably maybe even overcompensating a little bit now that I want to kind of make up for that. And we talk about it as a family all the time. We actually have 2 trips planned with the 3 grandbabies in November to go make memory, like just isolated time, 48 hours, 72 hours, 3 days, 4 days, that we're all going to go together and be at the same location.
I love that.
So that we can spend time together. And it's different than them coming to my house or me going to their house. When you take it off site, so we call it off site, then it makes it different. You're going to have breakfast and lunch and dinner, and we're going to do those things. So so we're excited about that.
Yeah, it changes it from just being in the same location to actually being that quality time that you're shifting that a little bit. Yeah. Adding a little another piece to the puzzle. So
my computer's not there. The dog's not there. You know what I mean?
There's the distractions are limited, and you're all experiencing maybe a different thing at the same time, which is cool. Yeah. Awesome. I love that. What is your favorite movie and why? And this is more of a fun one, but it could be, who knows? What's your favorite movie and why?
That's a horrible one, because my wife will tell you, I go to movies for one reason: I want to laugh. I don't like tearjerkers. I'm not crazy about shoot 'em ups. You know what I mean? Like I want to laugh. You know what I mean?
So we're comedy. That's all right. I like that.
Yeah. So I like the old kind of stupid movies. Step Brothers, Dumb and Dumber. I'm really I just like to, a movie to me is 2 hours without my phone. It can't be turned on, right?
Yep.
So I don't want to have to think too much. I don't want to, I just want to laugh. And
well, let's take it to the next step. What's the one comedy that you could watch over and over again, or if you're flipping through and you see it on, you're stopping, you're watching it?
Yeah, I would watch Grown Ups over and over. I would watch Step Brothers over and over. Okay. Back in the day, it was Fast Times at Ridgemont High. I used to love that Spicoli, show. That I'm dating myself. You probably don't even know what that show is.
I do know what the show. I haven't watched it, but I do know what you're talking about.
Yeah. Yes. So I just for me, it's it's kind of like watching TV at night. I literally have to have it on, and my wife will ask me a question about something. I'll say, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "That. It was just on TV." I'm not even watching it. It's to occupy the mind of some kind, right?
Gotcha.
Try to shut the mind
background
off.
noise.
Background noise. Okay. So, but for a movie, I like to be entertained. I like to laugh. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
One of my favorite things. I love going to comedy clubs. Love going to comedy clubs. So,
you and I are a lot alike, I think. So I'm a comedy guy too. Although I've been known to watch a tearjerker or two with the wife, but
I will. But I
don't know if I'm a huge fan, but there's a couple out there that I would say.
Well, I guess something you don't know about me, at Christmas time, I do get addicted to the Hallmark Channel.
Oh, boy.
My wife
Here
and
we go.
girls make so much fun of me. They can't watch it. But yeah, they're like, in the end, there's going to be a dog and they're going to get together and then it's going to lightly snow. And I go, I know, I can't wait for that.
There you go. So you're not a tearjerker, but the romance.
I do like
the Christmas romance.
The
All right,
Christmas
you're
romance
good.
does get me. Yeah, I will admit that.
All right. This question is if you could have coffee with one person, but we're going to say if you could have Diet Mountain Dew or energy drink with one person, dead or alive, who would it be and why?
Geez, I'd probably like to go back and have Diet Mountain Dew with either one of my grandfathers who have both passed, and they were both great men. But I definitely would have some questions for them and just kind of pick their brains on some of the things that I have questions on now, or in terms of what was important to them and looking back on their lives. It's hard because now looking back, I just wonder about how they lived their lives in certain aspects and how they felt about certain things. One of my grandfathers was extremely religious. Not that the other one wasn't, but one was extremely religious. Church every single week, didn't miss.
Yeah.
Prayed before every meal. I remember him, very, very strong man in terms of his faith. But probably one of my grandfathers, I would say. Either one of them. I loved them both very much. They were very different men. But I would love to have some more time with them and talk to them a little bit more about life, which, I never, I guess I really didn't have those types of conversations with them. But, yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing today.
Thank you for having me.
And I like to ask this, but I'll share if someone out there that's struggling with maybe it's alcohol or addiction or I know David would be more than willing to offer words of advice, maybe point in the right direction. Is there a way that someone can reach you social media wise, or what would you recommend if they had a question or encouragement?
Absolutely. Reach out to me. If you Google me, you'll find my phone numbers out there pretty easily.
Yeah.
I don't mind at all. If you need help and you want encouragement, you need some recommendations, absolutely. Built to Lead, I did meet a couple guys from Built to Lead, and one of the gentlemen who had some struggles had approached me after the conference, and we've been keeping in touch now.
That's awesome.
Just encouraging each other. It's interesting. When we kept in touch the first time, I sent him a song. I said, hey, if you ever have a bad day, here's a song. This guy, I didn't realize he loves music. He sent me about 8 songs right after that. He sent me like 5 more.
That's awesome.
But yeah, great relationship I already have. He just sent me a video I'll share with his daughter reciting a Bible verse that she needed to recite for Sunday school. And it's the cutest thing you've ever seen.
That is awesome.
He said, hey, just wanted to show you. And he sent me a video of her reciting Bible verse. So as I said, if you're going to give it up, if you have a fear that, your friend group is going to change, it could. But that might not be a bad thing either. You know what I mean?
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah. And I'll leave you guys with this. We always try to share impactful messages, things that guys can use. If you're out there, you're struggling, maybe you think you have an addiction, maybe you don't think you have an addiction, but someone else is, in your family maybe mentioning it. Reach out. You can reach out to me, Jason White. I'm all over too. You can reach out to David Scott. Just Google him. You'll find him. Just send us a text, message, phone call, whatever. We're here for you. We got men that are willing to pray with you, willing to help in any way we can. And remember, you're built for this. So thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week.